All right. Hello and Happy New Year, everyone. I am so excited to be sharing this video with you all, and I can't wait for this upcoming 2021 season of concerts that 10th Wave has planned. My name is Ashley, and I'm a violinist with 10th Wave, as well as your social media and marketing director. And I am thrilled to be joined today by a fantastic artist, musician, and composer, Elwyn Alexander Fraser Jr. And Elwyn has been a part of 10th Wave since our debut concert at Studio Z in January back in 2017. And then one of the last concerts that we all did together was actually January of 2020 at St. Olaf, and Elwyn performed on a piece by Frederick Jevsky called Coming Together. So, welcome, Elwyn, and thank you so much for joining me today. How has your winter break been going so far?
Hello, thank you for having me, and thank you all who are watching this for showing up and taking a look at what 10th Wave is about and what hopefully I can offer in terms of inspiration about composition and everything else that relates to such a craft. For me, it's been a whirlwind of a winter, to answer your question. Ashley, a lot has been going on. Thankfully, amidst the many things occurring throughout this year, I've also been able to, including this winter, spend some time with family, take a beat and relax and just reflect, on all that's occurred this year and how I hope to be a part of making for myself and society an even better year upcoming. So this winter has been a time of reflection and rest and family for me personally.
That's awesome. Same for me a little bit too. I've been quarantining in December so that I could spend time with my parents in Plymouth, and have been at their house since New Year or since Christmas Eve rather. So it's been great to have some family time. I can see that you're in a very beautiful part of your house. The tree looks beautiful.
Thank you. Definitely spent some time with family putting that together. And it's actually our first year with this Christmas tree. We wanted it to be a part of our year of firsts. A lot has occurred for us in terms of blended family and new home, wedding, a lot of different things. And so why not? Let's get a new Christmas tree while we're at it.
Well, it looks awesome. And it's right next to your piano and everything.
Yeah, it's a cozy space for sure. It's meant to bring people together in our own home. And we don't even, to be honest with you, have a TV in this specific living room space. That's downstairs, for example, where the kids can think of jumping and climbing around. That's the loud room downstairs. Whereas upstairs here, I think it apt to say more of the connect room, the cozy space, the instead of do as much, kind of just be space.
That's great. That is really nice. Well, I know we've worked together a lot in our performances and in professional settings, but I think we haven't hung out that much as like friends and everything. And unfortunately, this year was kind of a year that made it difficult to do that. But tell me a little bit about your musical background. Did you have like a primary instrument that you chose, or did an instrument kind of end up choosing you?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, it was the larynx. The little joke I like to say, I love to sing, right? And with that being anatomically the name of that space in the body, it's personally an intimate, universal instrument I've found over the years. Admittedly, it pervades all levels of my consciousness. I can find myself singing without even noticing it. You
Mm.
know, someone would walk by and was like, "Oh, hey, were you humming?" And I'm like, "Oh, I guess I was." A song doesn't have to be on the radio at that time or not. It just can be a song from my heart, which I highly recommend all people have. Just have something brewing in here whenever they can, and sing to it. And so I honestly must say, in a way, we've chosen each other. You know,
Yeah.
it's been quite the symbiotic relationship throughout my life. I'm very thankful to God to have this part of my body and to be able to use that part of me in expression, musically, harmonically, as a form of connectedness. So, yeah, I find myself using it whether I'm conscious of it or not.
Yeah, that's awesome. When I was younger, maybe like, I don't know, early elementary school, I really enjoyed singing, but the second my parents took me to have like a voice lesson with someone, I just like froze completely. And for me, that was always like super scary, but with an instrument, or a different instrument with violin, it was a little easier to kind of break through that expression. But I know what you're talking about with it feeling like just it's very inside of you and you find yourself humming things and you don't even realize it.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And to be able to embrace that, I feel is a part of embracing yourself. We all have different forms of expression, and the more we can find ways to constructively accept that form of expression, the more easily we'll find freedom and freedom to connect authentically with each other.
Yeah, yes, very much so. Was there a point where you kind of realized, or maybe your family realized, that music was something that you were really into when you were younger?
I'd probably say when I first was introduced to Christian music by my mother, we'd head off to church weekend after weekend with a Christian radio station on. And I've heard a variety over the years, everything from gospel to just contemporary Christian music. And sometimes I liked the music, sometimes I didn't, to be honest. What I most appreciated, though, was the exposure so
Mm.
that I could figure out what I liked and didn't like. And over the holidays, especially from my dad's side, he always had the Caribbean music playing, and it always fit the season, especially over Christmas. And so I got that cultural component, not just spiritual, but cultural as well, to music in the home, in that microculture family space. And I deeply appreciated that exposure. It goes back as far as I could remember. For me, honestly, it it brought a lot of peace and safety as I began to explore what I actually liked amidst all that music, and we didn't have Spotify back then, so it wasn't as easy to go searching for different styles and genres and artists. But we did have, for example, I'm sure some people, if they're old enough, remember, like MTV or even BT and things like that. And depending what genre you're into, you could even connect with different libraries with different types of music, including classical music too. And especially if you had someone in your life who actually performed or professionalized in that given field, the books and scores and recordings of all shapes, opera singers I did get into as I began focusing more on choir. I actually got a bit into opera during high school. Like one artist comes to mind. I think his name is Bryn Terfel. I hope I'm pronouncing that at least close.
Sounds familiar, yeah.
Yeah, a baritone opera singer, and just, of course, everyone knows like Pavarotti and others. And so it's been a journey for me since a young age of appreciation of the exposure of different types of music, as well as the discovery of peace and safety, and finding those different forms of music that I deeply enjoy. And out of that, I was curious, right? I wanted to find out more about these different genres that I gravitated towards. And in finding those genres that still continue to evolve to this day, I continue to find different genres I like. As I, grow and change myself, I fell in love with the ability to express myself in those different art forms, and dare I say, challenge myself to merge and create all new uh, genres of art within the music arena. So I've appreciated the journey since a young age that definitely both my parents have played quite the role in.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. One thing that maybe is kind of a little similar, or well, just a funny thing that I did over my winter break with my parents, they recently moved houses and we took all of the CDs and music from the old house and brought it with, but didn't really sort through it. And now we're kind of trying to declutter a little bit, but I helped organize like just boxes and boxes of CDs, and it made me think back to when before Spotify and music online existed, we had to search everything out on our own. And if you wanted two recordings of like a symphony, you had to go find it. And so there was a lot of pride in being able to explore that, I felt like when I was younger. But I appreciate that there's so much just at our fingertips now. But yeah, back in ye olden days when we were smaller, it was not maybe as big of a range that you could always find, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And boy, could I digress on how things have changed.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, it's tempting to say like, boy, are we that old? You know,
I know, right? Yeah.
it's not just Spotify, but like cell phones and so many different things. Like people growing up these days, just I mean, like, what's a landline? Cassette. You know, so
Well, let's see. Growing up, did you have any inspiring mentors or teachers who really influenced you to kind of go one direction or another?
the mentors that come most keenly to mind for me are the music teachers, specifically within the realm of composition, the music teachers I had back in middle school and high school. So, one music teacher specifically in middle school, his name is Mr. James. I actually am still friends with him on Facebook, which is awesome how you can grow as an individual, become an adult, and have the ability this day and age to reconnect
Yeah.
with years from years ago, and you know, uh, by God's grace, stay connected throughout the rest of your life. So, Mr. James, I can also speak to two, well, three really, high school music teachers. One, well, I'll focus on two of them for now. One, Mr. Barrick. He was mainly the pianist, actually, throughout my time in high school choir. And then there was Miss Montanonia. Both of them I'm still friends with on Facebook as well. And we attempt to stay connected. Miss Montanonia and I, Tina is her first name, we've become deep friends, quite dear friends over the years. And she's helped me grow not just musically, but in my character as well, and I believe with anyone's craft, finding that nexus of excellence in your art form alongside excellence in your values and your character is quite the sweet spot. You can find your most authentic self in that overlap of space instead of attempting to be someone in life that you're not, or attempting to be or do something in your art form that doesn't quite resonate with you. So attempting to pursue that space of overlap really captured my heart when learning from Tina over the years and continuing to be friends with her. She actually doesn't teach anymore. She transitioned from music teaching to becoming a doctor of
Oh,
all things, and so now she's in the medical field. And I mean, being 2020, she's dealt with quite a lot. I can only imagine how resilient you have to be and how much space you need to continue in your craft emotionally when dealing with so much heartache and so much loss with our current pandemic, and still attempting to wake up every day and
mhm.
continue to be on that front line, and help those in need, even when hospitals are at capacity. And it's not just the physical component, but the emotional component again as well, both for the uh, caregivers, the health providers, as well as the family members and those on, uh, the operating table if need be, to somehow uh, become better. And we know it doesn't always work out that way.
Mm, mhm.
Uh,
Yeah,
and that's heartbreaking when someone doesn't make it.
yeah.
I definitely applaud her pursuit of both teaching and physical health over the years, and I'm glad she's one of my dear friends.
That's a really special relationship to have, I think, between a teacher or a mentor when you're younger, and then for you to kind of grow up and keep going down that path, and then for them to see you. I'm sure they're just so proud of you. And just so lucky probably to feel like, wow, I have this student who just really stuck with it and is just making a living with art. That's awesome. I can't wait to finally be a teacher and hopefully have students like that too someday, but
Yeah,
maybe after a couple of years.
Ashley, I'm sure you'll be amazing. And
Aw,
decades down the road, be like, Ashley, so much I've learned. You said this one thing, and I thought it was stupid then, but years later, it was the best thing that ever happened. Yeah, it's amazing how we can look back on life and just reflect and see, whoa, they said that one thing and it didn't mean much then, but now it's like everything, you know? And so just to encourage you, and I appreciate you admitting your pursuit in teaching, be in the moment, as much as you can. If you see just like even a behavioral quirk that, kind of sparks, oh, maybe I should pull that student aside and give them a little encouragement. I saw this behavior in them, do that. Be in the moment, nurture them, bring them to the side and say, hey, I just want to encourage you in this area or that area, and confidence, and trying that melodic line one more time, and I'm sure maybe at that moment they may not sense it for whatever reason. Maybe they got a lot going on, or they're just not quite mature enough to handle it. But uh, down the road, I'm sure it'll be huge for them.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, what else do we have to chat about? We have so many things just because we've got a lot coming up this year and there's just so many topics to discuss. I think one thing that I've been curious about for you is because you do so many different things with music, from performing to narrating and maybe a little kind of acting, I guess, too. When you've read things, and it's just been awesome to have you be a part of this. Do you feel like you have kind of like one role more than another, or does it all sort of make a balance? Or do you have a favorite kind of thing to be doing when performing?
For me, I've always struggled to separate the performance realm and the composition realm. It's, I can function in each realm, but I'm usually more comfortable merging the two together. I feel that at some level, from birth, really, we all express ourselves in a constant state of creation. You know, when we're walking down the street and we say hi to somebody, we don't even have to be conscious of how saying hi to one person, maybe a friend from school, will sound a little different than saying hi to our mom when we get home from school, and we're expressing ourselves and at the same time constantly creating and recreating how exactly we go about that expression. So I feel it's something that we all, at some level, to some degree, can relate to if we're open to it. That's partly why, among many genres of art, jazz and improv resonate quite deeply with me. You can have something on a score and do your best to honor the composer and how it is written. And at the same time, even if it's not jazz, right? Like you do your best to articulate every note with every dynamic, express if there are words, express the words and the manner at which it's supposed to, with the expressive markings and all of that. At some point, though, to make that performance your own, you've got to move beyond the page. Find that uniqueness and authenticity in yourself to make that performance of yours apart from any other performance that's ever occurred or ever will occur.
Mm-hmm.
Even between performances, you may attempt to perform it the same way, and yet due to your mood or what's going on in your life at that time, a performance at Carnegie Hall one day may be a little different of a performance for yourself at the Ordway in the month from now, and so it's important to, I believe, recognize those creative aspects of ourselves and be willing to embrace them. And for me personally, that journey of recognition and embracing has come to a point of, okay, I am actually going to compose something. And in some of my compositions, I will encourage others to be more creative than usual, do a bit more than making it your own while prescribing exactly to what's on the sheet of music. Maybe that sheet of music will literally say to ad-lib, go for that. See what ornamentation you can add to that melodic expression you're learning in the moment, and each time it might be different. I feel that is a fulfilling pursuit for others to take, and finding that creative spark within themselves, as at least in my opinion, it's always been there,
Mm.
to some degree.
Yeah. One thing you mentioned was that, like, just having that little bit of moment to be creative that's really unique to each individual. And I think that part of classical music, at least when we're kind of trained in that genre from a young age, is just there's a lot of rigidity about how things kind of have to be. Like if you're, when your finger goes down here, it has to go in this spot. And then later we teach you how to move it to the other spot. Or when you see these dynamics, you have to do this. And so it makes it, I think, a little difficult to feel like you can be super unique sometimes when you're locked into a system that's sort of trained you to be following all these directions. But I think one thing that is nice is, or at least with your piece that when I was looking through and listening through to it, I feel like your writing, it's tonal and beautiful and has themes in it that allow the performer to use maybe their classical training, but to expand it and turn it into something more personal. And so that I think is somewhere that I like starting out in, because I'm not super comfortable with just improvising on my own, but with other people and feeling supported, I think that's kind of a really nice way of blending things together, like you've said.
Amen. Thank you as well, by the way.
Well, and then that leads me to one of the pieces that we're going to be programming on our winter virtual concert is called Phoenix Aflight for marimba and cello. And I guess my question about that one is, when was that piece written, and did you have anyone particular in mind for performing it?
Yes, so it occurred a year or two ago when I wasn't married at the moment, uh, but still deeply in love. I had someone in mind specifically. She's my wife now, Lynette Frazier. Then it was Lynette Simpson. So I then did not know we would be married. I had dreams, had hopes, and here we are now. That was part of my loving expression to her, Phoenix of Light. And to be more vulnerable with you, Phoenix is one of my nicknames for her.
What?
It it's it's an amazing sight in witnessing her journey through both her professional career and through her personal life. And I won't get into all the details since it is her story, and maybe one day she can express that. I'm just in awe, nonetheless, of how far she's come. And we all, I believe, experience at times points of, where am I? Who am I? Now, how did I get to this point? What's next? And if you have a community around you, someone that can remind you of your potential, of your worth, of your ability to choose your identity, then from there, you can quite literally rise out of the ashes. And that's a big part of both Lynette and I's journey. We've had many hardships, and to see where we are now and the visions we have for the future in self-growth and contributing to our society and our community, it's it's something I praise God for every day. And so Phoenix of Light, as I've mentioned, came out of a want to further express my love for her and speak to the journey I have seen her pursue, with bravery and perseverance. And I hope to continue witnessing that and being a part of that as we continue growing together.
That is so beautiful. I didn't know that there was that much backstory with the piece, but I'm really excited for Patty and Ari to get to play that together on our concert. Yeah. Let's see. Maybe another question, I guess this is something that could be asked of a lot of composers, but when you're beginning a composition, do you have kind of ultimate end goals that you think of, even from the blank canvas that you start at?
Yeah, that definitely is kind of a common and nonetheless worthwhile question. For me, connection. That's definitely an ultimate goal of mine. I, in authentic expression, want to bridge the chasm between individuals of differing backgrounds. There's, I feel, such a universal nature to music across culture, across ideologies, that given the right amount of thought and heart put into a song, people can begin to see themselves in each other. Music, I feel, has such a role to play in empathizing
Mm-hmm.
with the other individual and being willing to then recognize what connects you through the intricacies of who you are and the intricacies of who they are. Finding that access point of connection can help you further appreciate then whatever level of differences still exists between you. And from there, you can find more and more and more common ground and innovate more and more and more powerful solutions to whatever issues are at play. And at the end of the day, simply be in each other's presence, which is so hard for many individuals, not, I dare say, because of specifically that other individual, but really, to be real about it, these stories we tell ourselves about the other individual. And if we can change the narrative by inserting a common connection of, even if it's just music, that could be the spark, the access point to bring more people together. And so connection for me is a foundational drive to why I compose. And, I hope it can help speak to more and more people independent of their language or their behavior or their culture, etc.
Yeah, I think that's a common thing that people often say is that music is a universal language. And I think in some ways it's like, yeah, that's very true. But then we also have kind of our cultural differences of just how different musical languages actually exist, right? Like we have our Western notation versus things that are different. And I don't know that much actually about world music, but I think the main thing that I always love about going to concerts and listening to music, even if it's either a virtual concert or hearing something on the radio, is that I can hear it in a way that speaks to me, and it might be completely different from how you might hear it or how someone else might hear it or someone who's not from Minnesota or America might hear it, but we're all going to take something really special away from what we hear, or it's going to mean something different to each of us. But having that connection is, I think, the most important thing too. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You know, powerful how we can find something meaningful, however different, in the same song
Mhm.
across cultures, and that experience in of itself is worth having, and finding even a bridge that is built by a variety of people in a variety of ways. And yet, nonetheless, it's a bridge that,
Mhm.
using all different types of stones and pebbles and colors. And look at what we just created together. All the different expressions we've just experienced together. And guess what? We're we're together. That's something. We're doing it. You know,
Yeah.
like what else can we connect on? In various ways, while each other's individuality, recognizing our unity.
Very much. And I think 2021 is just going to be a great year for music. I'm really hopeful that having some extent of maybe live performances being able to happen, if, whether it's outdoor or indoor, just having that back again and knowing that we're going to be able to do that and share that with strangers is really comforting. And I think it's something that in 2020 we deeply were missing and really didn't even notice that or didn't realize how big of an impact that it has until it's taken away completely, and then you're left with like, well, what do I do now? And we've
Mhm.
never been in that position before, at least as far as I'm aware. In my lifetime I've never experienced something like that. Well, one thing that I guess as a performer who studies music and um, often has to kind of interpret a lot of things, I find that I get a little bit stuck sometimes when I'm trying to learn music. And for you as a composer, do you have moments of writer's block, and what do you do when you run into that with your compositions?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. I feel with just about any form of art, any form of creativity, one can get stuck, and my personal journey in the realm of composition looks like me composing and then finding myself stuck and wondering, wait, I got to take a huge step back at those moments of feeling stuck. And when I do that, start critically thinking about that point in my experience, I tend to find the root cause being that I'm forcing decomposition. I have a very specific way I want the piece to go, and I'm unwilling to accept the different direction the piece may be headed. And so the natural next step in terms of removing, that obstacle, how do I get back to being unstuck, right? And for me, it looks like taking a huge step back again and saying, okay, I recognize this. I accept the fact that I'm attempting to force this for whatever reason. And I'm going to switch, shift, adjust my heart posture from forcing it to discovering it. And for me, I relate to it as I relate to caring for my son. I don't want to, at any given moment in time, tell him exactly what he should be doing, how he should be acting, what he should be saying, how, just prescribing every aspect of his existence at that moment in time. I don't feel I'm best encouraging his best self when doing that. If anything, I'm projecting myself and my own expectations onto him in a potentially harmful way. Instead of all that force, I choose to guide him. I choose to set boundaries and limits to ensure his safety, to ensure his space is strong enough, his environment is strong enough, his um, interests are encouraged enough for him to blossom. When I then connect this back to composition, I similarly focus on the discovery. I look at, okay, I see this spark coming about in the melodic line. I close my eyes, take another listen to this motif or this last, most recent section of the score, and I just attempt to open my mind completely to where it could go next. A literal exercise in discovery. And out of that, whether it's coming out of my subconscious or what have you, or my heart, however we attempt to term it or articulate it, I find another melody beginning to take shape, another harmony starting to rise, another chordal progression begin to take shape. And I pursue that. I pursue that discovery. I attempt to find a way to ensure it works within the piece and apply whatever music theory that needs to occur to ensure it's structurally sound and it's playable, for example, on a given instrument and all that fun stuff, while at the end of the day, remaining an authentic caregiver, not dictator, caregiver for the given piece that is evolving before my eyes. And I enjoy that. I want the piece to live. And it's hard for a piece to live if I'm telling it what to do in a way every point of its evolution. Even if I get to the end doing that, to be frank, I feel it's a shell of itself. It's not what it could be.
Yeah. Wow, I really like hearing the way that you think about composing and the idea of discovery versus forcing. That's so important, I think, for people to take a step back and try not to let things just sort of get to that point of like we're not creating anymore, we're just going on autopilot from what we've done in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, something that our ensemble is really privileged to be able to do with a lot of composers, and especially with you somewhat recently, is that we're able to talk about the music while it's in the writing process. And so, one of your more recent pieces, "We Are Free," we really like the instrumentation. We got to talk with you and hear a couple of different drafts. I guess, how did you decide on the voicing for the piece and to make it for clarinet, strings, voice, and piano? Well, is it? No, sorry, marimba.
Yep, piano and marimba. Yeah,
Okay.
I I definitely cared to set some some boundaries, if you will, boundaries of the canvas, if you will, if we're painting something. And one of those boundaries was to ensure it, whatever the piece would sound like and be, it would be playable by 10th wave. And so I thought very intentionally about, okay, these are the instruments that we're going to have, the cello, the violin, the B flat clarinet, the voice, the piano, the marimba. We're just going to have those instruments in there. That is going to be the instrumental foundation of the piece. Of course, at any time in the future, one can rewrite it for less instruments or more instruments. At the same time, I knew, okay, the first installment of this piece, the first arrangement, if you will, of this composition will exist within the 10th wave ensemble. From there, I wanted to give the piece relevance to our current time. I care for all of my music, whether in performance or composition or a merge of the two, which I enjoy the most in merging them. I care for all artistic expression I participate in to have meaning. And so I set about determining what that meaning would be for this piece. And it was before I even named it, before I named the piece. And I thought, okay, boy, has it been a year. That's felt like 10, 20, few decades. It's just so much has happened. And what in the world, what do I want to say about this? And the name then came to me, We Are Free. I felt that powerful statement of encouragement in the safest of areas, of defiance in the most oppressive of areas, could speak most universally to people of differing journeys throughout this year, of overcoming, of getting through. And I thought, okay, how best to, in that encouragement, still contextualize it with what we've gone through, acknowledging the hardship and the loss in some unique manner. And so I felt then, okay, let's make this piece somewhat of a journey. Let's create 3 sections to the piece and start with that space of energy and at times anger and denial and heartache and just wrestling with all types of things going on, whether it be the loss of a job, an individual, in-person connection due to quarantine, whatever is going on. You're wrestling with that. You haven't yet hit the space of what would come later in the piece, with the next section being tearful acceptance. As I had put in the expressive markings, there's then a point in that second section of letting go. And letting go doesn't mean it's all of a sudden, clouds and rainbows. Letting go could be literally a puddle, a monsoon on the floor, unable to get up because you are embracing at this moment, flowing with the emotions you've just so long fought hard against in many ways, and just the reality itself, the loss, whatever it may be, so hard fought against. And at this moment, you're moving more towards a point of letting go and accepting and allowing even your safe expression of those emotions and response to the heartache. Crying is okay, whether you're uh, whether you're okay with crying or not. Guess what? At least in my belief, crying is okay, and it's a part of the process and being able to move forward authentically. So let the tears flow. If there are tears there, let them flow. However counterintuitive, however um, weak you may perceive that to be, or whatever story you have around that, giving it a try in a safe space, in a place that people are, if there's anyone around, that they know, they've got your back. Just letting the tears fall helps you let go. Literally, it's a kind of in a way, a psychosomatic thing. You just physically let go, lose tension. Just the tears fall, and it's a beautiful, however counterintuitive exercise of being able to move forward. And from that state, even if you're literally a puddle on the floor, something miraculous happens. And I personally speaking from experience, I've dealt with trauma. I've gone through some things, and it's I mean, it can take a moment, it can take days, frankly, it could take years. And at some point, nonetheless, you can move from acceptance to meaning and finding a way to, as I had mentioned with Lynette and I's journey, literally rising from the ashes. You know, Uh, One thing I had heard from a book, Getting to Yes with Yourself, by William. And there was a little story he had put in there where essentially someone was in the hospital and another individual told him, hey, you're in the hospital, you're badly wounded, it sucks, I get it. You can either allow this to be the worst thing that ever happened to you or the best thing that ever happened to you. It's your choice, you know? And so focusing on what you can control, however unfair life may feel in the moment, allows you to then take charge of your life and do something amazing because you are unwilling to give up on yourself because of how hard the circumstances may be. That is still and will always be your choice, to keep moving forward and not give up on yourself. And so from that second section, you move into the third section, which is literally a form of, as I had envisioned it, at least, a form of flight. You're um, you, in a way, let go and felt like you hit rock bottom, and you're like, whoa, something's shifting within me. I don't quite even get it, but I'm finding all sorts of peace here. Just very counterintuitive, but I'm feeling this peace, and and naming the feeling and naming the situation and recognizing it, I'm finding a way to move forward from it. Instead of it controlling me, I'm beginning to control it by actually naming it and recognizing it. And so, okay, what's next? This isn't the end of my story, right? What can I do next? Despite how unfair the situation may be, how can I continue forward in this life? And so it's very exciting. There's a lot of different, melodic structures in it. And by the end, there's just I'm not really sure how to put it, but it's just a new state of being, I hope, for the listener to feel when they finally get to the end of that piece. That they hear the chordal structures and the way each voicing is expressed, and just something shifts for them. you know it was rough writing the piece because I, for example, wanted it, getting back to the force versus discover, right? I wanted the whole thing to be in like some variant of E major. And nope, that didn't happen. It just kept shifting. I ended up doing three different keys, or no, four actually different keys in its totality, but none of them are E major. And so, like, okay, that's fine. Um, I love the piece. I am very thankful for the opportunity before it has ever, fully performed, and participating in the creation of it. And so I do hope, I might continue to, fine tune it, etc. I do hope once it is performed by us, on 10th Wave, it can connect differing backgrounds of people. And even if they see different things, they're able to see different things together, and have a conversation around that and begin to hear each other's stories in that.
I like that idea. I'm so excited to get to play that piece and to work with you and everyone else at 10th Wave when we start that one. I think that we're kind of thinking of that for being a summer concert or a little bit later in our year. But I think what you've said about it and just the journey of it, kind of going through the different sections of your piece, it really was kind of like hearing about our whole 2020 year and like the whirlwind of things from the pandemic to just all the racial and political turmoil and injustices that we've witnessed throughout this past year. But to feel that at the end, there's always that light and that we're able to make that choice of stepping above it and owning our decisions. I think that's something that a lot of people can resonate with.
Amen.
Well, what advice would you have for other artists of color, like for maybe the next generation, someone your son's age or someone in high school who's thinking about pursuing a career in the arts? What kind of things would you want to say to younger artists?
Believe in yourself. I think it's a struggle at times for many of us, especially if we're young, to truly believe in ourselves. At times it can be very obvious, that we're having a hard time. We're, just unwilling to say anything, do anything, that requires a little bravery that kind of goes against the status quo in a way. And at other times, it can look a little different. Sometimes you're kind of just crying out to the world and yet you're not taking a beat, taking a breath, pausing and finding what deep within would be, however hard, the most authentic and the most vulnerable way to express yourself. To be real, it's very easy if you if you want, it's very easy to express yourself in anger. To just lash out and scream at the world. It's a whole another level to be able to just take a sec, really figure out what you want to say, how you want to say it, write it down, whether it be notes, words, paint, just electronic media, whatever it may be, dance, and put it out there in all its vulnerability, all the root emotions, because anger, frankly, isn't one of them. I can tell you that. Anger is not a root emotion. There's always something beneath anger, right? And so getting to that, whether it be, you feel betrayed, right? Or you feel ashamed, you feel unseen, get to that root feeling, sit with that, get to know yourself in that. It might take a minute, and that's okay. And at the end of the day, out of belief in what you can do to shape the world, you can articulate those feelings that, guess what, you're probably not alone in feeling, but maybe the first one, because you're brave enough to step out and express those feelings. You did the work, and now you're putting yourself out there, and you just might find other people stepping up too and saying, oh, me, I see myself in you. Can I join you? Thank you for stepping up. Now I'm willing to as well. So believe in yourself. And you might surprise yourself in doing that. I think another piece would be, as I had just mentioned, as a part of believing yourself, express yourself. I feel that it's a part of connecting with community and connecting with yourself that brings about a way to express more and more of what you're seeing and what's going on in a creative way. If you isolate, if you sequester yourself from anyone else, it's hard, and dare I say at times impossible, for you to be heard in expression, much less be exposed to the situations around you enough to have something to express. Because we're all going through life and living and absorbing what's going on around us. And dare I say, none of us can truly live our life alone. And so a part of self-expression fundamentally is connection. To self-express out of a true state of living, it is critical for us to be in community. Critical. So even if that's a bit scary, finding a safe space, a safe community to do that within will make it much easier for you to express yourself. another piece I would say is to keep discovering. You know, it's a growth mindset game in a way. You know, you in practicing your craft, right? Not just waking up and thinking you're, I don't know, Pavarotti or something, you know, just you gotta one phrase I had heard before is uh, talent means nothing without training. And sometimes that is so hard to accept. And yet it is nonetheless true. And it's not even, you know, sometimes you're not up for it, but it's not even a have to scenario, rather a get to scenario. You know, with the right heart posture, the right mindset, you can see the craft that enlivens you, that gets you up in the morning and think, oh, you know, I really just want to sing a little more today. I'm going to make a little extra time. I enjoy it. I'm just going to keep singing. I'm going to have fun. Or I'm just going to, you know, an extra hour of painting. Now that's really going to just make my day. I'm going to do that. You know, training doesn't have to be a sentence, you know, in prison or something like that. It can be a beautiful time of discovering yourself, you know, and practicing a given brush stroke or a given uh, run of your voice, uh, a given way of playing a ninth chord on the piano. You know, it's in those learning of techniques, you find more and more and more and more and more and more and more ways to express you. And so embrace it, you know, as yet another tool in your tool belt to find how best you can express yourself. Keep discovering, you know, and that's just the craft end, right? There's also the community end. As you continue to connect, right? As a part of that foundation and expressing yourself, you've got to be living life in community. Um, as you continue to connect with people, you find more and more things to talk about, more and more things to advocate for, and making the world a better place. That always starts with you.
I love that. I love your three kind of pillars of advice, from the discovery part to building the community, and just to believe in yourself. It's just so important. And I think I speak for everyone at 10th Wave that we are just so looking forward to bringing back music to our community, bringing your music to the community with Phoenix Aflight and We Are Free this 2021 season. We can't wait to be playing music again together. And I can't wait to be doing that with everybody because it's been such a long time since
It
we
has.
did that setting. Oh. Well, thank you so much for talking with me today, for sharing so much about your thought process and about your own personal journey, and for your words of wisdom to those out there who may be looking for someone to connect with, and someone who's willing to put themselves out there, be vulnerable, so that someone else can feel the same ability to do that as well.
Amen. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so for everyone who's been watching, we are so excited to perform again in 2021. You can look for further event information on our Facebook page if you search for 10th Wave and on our website, 10thwave.org. So thank you again, Elwyn. Happy New Year to everybody from all of us at 10th Wave. Thank you for your support and stay tuned for some awesome music coming to you in February. We will see you soon. Bye.